Hello everybody, my name is Sihem Bensalah and I'm a PhD student at Yonsei University. In this short presentation, I'm going to present you the first part of a three-part paper I attempt to publish about Jiehae Park's play entitled Peerless. The work I'm pursuing is currently entitled To Tween or Not to Tween, Examining Identity Through Duality, Doubleness and Authorship in Jiehae Park's Peerless. I'm going to present you a general introduction about the play, and then we'll focus on the first part of the three-part project. This play is a comedy until it is not, stresses Jiehae Park about her play Peerless. In an interview with the Marine Theatre Company, she adds, "I actually don't know how to write about big topics without comedy. I couldn't even if I wanted to. It feels important as a tool to open people up, both myself and the audience, to what might feel heavy or ponderous." Peerless intricately weaves together elements of tragedy and comedy, drawing from the tragic narrative of Shakespeare's Macbeth, while integrating dark comic tones reminiscent of pop culture films like Mean Girls or Heathers. This dual/hybrid approach reinterprets and subverts Shakespeare's archetypal narrative of power struggles driven by hubristic ambition and prophetic fates, transforming it into a contemporary teenage drama. In Peerless, two cunning sisters orchestrate a Machiavellian coup to challenge and rectify an unjust and privileged academic system. This subversion transformed the white, masculine, eponymous character of Shakespeare, known for his relentless quest for power, into a pair of high school twin sisters who confront their identity as Asian American women, navigating the challenges of being a, I quote, double minority as they strive to reach a future they think they rightfully deserve but are unjustly deprived of. Peerless centers on the character M, a figure reminiscent of Macbeth, who is driven by ambition and significantly influenced by her twin sister Elle, who pressures her to take decisive action in a manner akin to Lady Macbeth. M's desperation leads her to murder a fellow student, G, analogous to Duncan in Macbeth, to reclaim a coveted college position she believes is rightfully hers, seeing it as her only pathway to a promising future. This nuanced reinterpretation of Macbeth delves deeply into contemporary political themes, addressing Asian American stereotypes and grappling with the enduring legacies of inherited traumas. Moreover, through the twin sisters' drastic actions, the play critiques the simulacrum of inclusiveness of U.S. governmental initiatives such as affirmative actions. It presents a hyperbolic scenario wherein minorities appear to compete among themselves to obtain the same opportunities as, I quote, the regulars. The play premiered shortly after the U.S. Supreme Court announced its reconsideration of the Fisher versus University of Texas case, thereby providing a timely reflection on contemporary debates surrounding meritocracy and access to higher education. In 2008, Abigail Fisher, a white student, filed a lawsuit against the University of Texas, claiming that she was unfairly denied admission because of her race, alleging that students of color were given preferential treatment. The court's final decision in 2016 ruled against Fisher. Peerless directly addresses this continuous issue, portraying a conversation among teenagers as they wrestle with themes of marginalization and prioritization of individuals based on historical injustices endured by their respective communities. Peerless critiques a dysfunctional educational system but also subverts the white-centric ideology pervasive in literature and academia. By racializing and transforming a white canonical literary work into minor literature, Peerless challenges established norms and perspectives and interrogates concepts of authenticity and adaptation, as well as issues of identity and authorship. Thus, the theme of the minor or minority serves as a main motive in the play, operating on both literal and metaphorical levels. While Peerless centers on the double minority experiences of its protagonists, exploring their minor feelings, the narrative goes deeper into these nuanced experiences. It examines literary creation as a mode of engagement with and a challenge to the established literary canon from the perspective of the minor. This concept of the minor or minority, entwined with another significant theme, doubleness and duality, explored through the identities and psyches of identical twins whose paths tragically converge, affirming the prophecy that, I quote, one can't be both. To explore identity in relation to the themes of minor/minority and doubleness/duality within Peerless, I will use the inverted parallelism of Shakespeare's existential question, to be or not to be, as a common thread. As Marjorie Garber stresses, I quote, the doubling effect of the inverted parallelism is a doubling back that also becomes a double take. And in Peerless, this double take has significance both literally on stage and metaphorically in the narrative, but also metatextually in the act of writing. This concept encapsulates the physical and experiential doubleness of the twins and explores the polarization between the regulars and the non-regulars, those who are the same and those who are the same but not quite. It also examines the interplay between the hypertext of Macbeth and the hypertext of Peerless, addressing the dichotomy between canonical literature and the minor literature. Thus, drawing upon Shakespeare's to be or not to be, reframed here as to tween or not to tween, I am to critically scrutinize concept of self, sameness, existence, and representation as they relate to the minor. As stressed in my introduction, my whole project is divided in 3 parts. The first part is entitled To Be a Non-Regular or Not to Be, investigating identity from the perspective of double minority status. The second part is entitled To Tween or Not to Tween, focusing on identity, duality, and doubleness through the twin sisters. And finally, the third part is entitled To Write and Not to Write, exploring authoritarian identity and authenticity through the experience of the author. But in this presentation, I'm going to focus mainly on the first part entitled To Be a Non-Regular or Not to Be. In Peerless, high school serves as a frame through which to examine student life. Yet, this microcosm reveals issues of a broader societal scale. M&L's high school experience appears to parallel broader U.S. policies towards minorities. Their apprehension about potential rejection from the college, perceived as the sole avenue towards a promising future, seems to stem from an inherited Asian American trauma of exclusion. As Law emphasizes, I quote, a national memory haunts the conception of the Asian American, persisting beyond the repeal of actual laws prohibiting Asians from citizenship and sustained by the wars in Asia, in which the Asian is always seen as an immigrant, as the foreigner within. This legacy of exclusion seems to be reenacted at school, as according to M&L, affirmative actions appears to favor other minorities, such as Native Americans or African Americans, once again excluding Asian Americans. The twins' experience highlights what Kalipori Kong underscores as the absence of Asian American presence, criticizing their lack of social and political recognition with her statement, Asian lack presence. Asians take up apologetic space. We don't even have enough presence to be considered real minorities. We're not racial enough to be token. We're so post-racial. We're silicon. M highlights this idea when she tells BF, there is no historically Asian college I can apply to, and when she laments with L, it's not like I'm black or poor. M and L are acutely aware of their status as minorities, or as M puts it, as double minorities, emphasizing, I quote, I'm a girl, double minority, double minority vagina. Consequently, all their action seems to be driven and justified by this awareness, as being considered as irregular does not even seem to be an option for them. This competitive system of the United States make it inconceivable for M to apply as a regular student, so she confines herself to her status as a non-regular. She complains that her minority status does not seem as desperate as others who accumulate more suffering. M and L believe that D is only accepted as he accumulates both a Native American legacy and, I quote, a retarded brother, which makes him appear more miserable, and thus more favorable for college acceptance. Affirmative action is not perceived merely as a mechanism for minorities to gain more opportunities, rather, it is often viewed as a simulacrum of inclusivity. In this system, minorities find themselves competing to demonstrate they have endured the most suffering and marginalization in order to be deemed worthy, all while suppressing their own ugly or minor feelings, not to challenge but to protect white feelings. Therefore, Jiehae Park is not simply using racial trauma as a dramatic stage for individual growth, but is actively delving into, I quote, the trauma of a racist capitalist system that keeps the individual in place. In doing so, she aligns herself with a tradition of literature on minor feelings, focusing not only on characters burdened by the stigma of double minority status, but also exploring their experiences of minor feelings. According to Kadi Park Hong, minor feelings encompass, I quote, the racialized range of emotion that are negative, dysphoric, and therefore antelogenic, built from the sediment of everyday racial experience and the irritant of having one's perception of reality constantly questioned or dismissed. This resonates with M's experience, who is fetishized for her small feet by D, complimenting her drawing a comparison with the painful tradition of foot binding. Yet she can only respond gross to avoid appearing to overreact. This internalization of these minor feelings can lead to what Kadi Park Hong describes as racial self-hatred, where individuals begin to see themselves through the eyes of the dominant culture, becoming their own worst enemies. This is evident in M's experience as she internalizes the idea that being mistaken for her sister is commonplace among white people who tend to confuse Asians. She becomes so accustomed to this racism that she doesn't correct her teacher when he greets her with ni hao, despite not being Chinese. When BF tries to explain why it's important not to let the teacher misidentify her, she insists on maintaining a docile facade to ensure his continued favor, even though it involves him fetishizing and orientalizing her. Thus, M strategically employs race and gender as a commodity, viewing it as something she can utilize to secure her future. She tries to counterbalance the idea that race and gender are a stigma inhibiting her goals. Instead, she strives to turn them into a tool to reach her goals, illustrating what Sin Hu refers to as reification of ethnicity that perpetuates Orientalist mythologies. In the twins' literal quest to secure a spot in college and conquer their future, D stands as the primary obstacle to their success. I quote, "Your spot in the class of 2020 has been taken, occupied, seized, usurped by a no-good, no-talent, no-brain-fat fuck." In a rhetoric reminiscent of the conquest themes found in Macbeth, the girls plot a coup to seize what they perceive as rightfully theirs, a destiny foretold to them by Dirty Girl. Tragedy strikes at their fixation on this predestined outcome, blind them to all other consideration. Their chosen path reflects stereotypes perpetuated by white ideology, which have been internalized and even inherited. Indeed, M strives to perpetuate the model minority myth as a way for the second generation to repay for the suffering endured by their forebears. However, M becomes entangled in a tragic narrative where strict adherence to this internalized minority myth appears to be the only path to a future where academic success defines one's existence. Denied the opportunity to achieve her future through the college, M's situations prompts L to intervene. L embodies and challenges the stereotype of the yellow peril, turning into a Machiavellian threat driven by hubris. Historically, the yellow peril stereotype depicted East Asian people, particularly Chinese and Japanese, as threats to Western civilization due to the deep-seated fear and prejudice. However, L subverts this stereotype, being not only a threat to the white-dominated education system, but also by serving as a manifestation of what might be termed as a white peril for minority groups. She embodies individualistic aspirations and explores desires for dominance within the hierarchy of minority communities. While both stereotypes aim to polarize Asian Americans, portraying them either as models of assimilation and success or as unassimilable subjects, M&L debunk this dichotomy by revealing that both stereotypes are merely the two different sides of the same coin. As Arlie pointed out, I quote, "The model minority has two faces. The myth presents Asian Americans as silent and disciplined. This is their secret to success. At the same time, this silence and discipline is used in constructing the Asian American as a new yellow peril. Therefore, these two stereotypes are inseparable and coalesce, highlighting the complexity of Asian American identity." In a reflection on margins and mainstream, Okihiro notes that these racial stereotypes are further complicated by a gender polarity, emphasizing that, I quote, "It seems to me that yellow peril and model minority are not poles denoting opposing representations along a single line, but in fact form a circular relationship that moves in either direction. We might see them as engendered images. The yellow peril denoting a masculine threat of military and sexual conquest, and the model minority symbolizing a feminized position of passivity and malleability. Moving in one direction along the circle, the model minority mitigates the alleged danger of the yellow peril, whereas reversing direction, the model minority, if taken too far, can become the yellow peril. In either swing along the arc, white supremacy is maintained and justified through feminization in one direction and repression in the other. Thus, M&L embody racial and gender stereotypes, tragically merging as M succumbs to L's plot, transforming their duality into a singular entity where L assumes M's identity after killing her. This transformation, or incarnation, ultimately symbolizes a white threat cloaked in the guise of the model minority myth. Jiehae Park's introduction of the play reminds us of the stereotypes are not merely two-dimensional truth. Here, the blending and subversion of the stereotypes suggests the possibility of being multifaceted and complex, embodying the idea that one can be both. The identity of M&L further complicates this idea, suggesting that perhaps one is always both. Despite being distinct characters, they can be perceived as a single two-dimensional character, prompting a reassessment of their twinness through an exploration of doubleness. This last segment was my transition to my second part, where I analyzed the two twins not as two individuals, but as two parts of the same psyche, drawing upon the Freudian analysis of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. This notion of split identity enables me to work on racial melancholia and transnational psyche, always already split between belonging and alienation, or sameness and distinction. Finally, in my last part, I focus on Jiehae Park's textual identity in relation to Shakespeare, questioning intertextuality and authenticity, and subverting the play's motto that one cannot be both. Thank you for listening to my presentation.